My name is Amy Cressy. I'm Chief Deputy Prosecutor here in St. Joseph County. With me today is the elected prosecutor, Ken Cotter, Chief Deputy Prosecutor, Michelle Gobieski, who heads up our Violent Crimes Division, and Captain Andrew Hines from the South Bend Police Department Detective Bureau. Today, the St. Joseph County Prosecutor's Office filed criminal charges against Jalil Aaron Wills, 21 years old, of South Bend, and Nicholas Jordan Fairchild, 23 years old, of South Bend, for their roles in the June 7th, 2025 shooting death of Christina Marie Ortiz. According to the investigation, Christina was in the 500 block of Wagner Street here in South Bend, which is near the Southeast Park, and just beyond Southeast Park is the YWCA. She was out there with many other people and her 5-year-old son. Shots were fired. Christina was struck in the head, and she died at the scene. No one else was injured. Christina was 37 years old. Officers from the South Bend Police Department Patrol Division and the Detective Bureau worked quickly. They responded to the scene. They started conducting witness interviews and gathering information. And they were able to develop a suspect vehicle which had fled from the scene just after the shooting. That vehicle description was turned over to the South Bend Police Department Real-Time Crime Center. Now, if you're unfamiliar, the Real-Time Crime Center is an amazing bringing together of technological resources all under one roof that the South Bend Police Department is using to solve crimes that would otherwise be unsolvable. Just one aspect of the Real-Time Crime Center is an amazing alliance between the community and the police department, utilizing those surveillance cameras that we see throughout the community. Local businesses are allowing the South Bend Police Department access to their video feeds so that they can monitor them and have access to that video. Residents of the city are signing up with the police department to allow the police to have access to their door camera surveillance video footage. This network is helping the police respond to active cases faster, allowing them to identify suspects faster, and to collect vital evidence faster in cases where the days, the hours, the minutes, and even the seconds count the most. In this case, Christina's case, the Real-Time Crime Center was given the description of that vehicle. And using its resources, they were able to find video footage of that suspect vehicle at the University Park Mall in Mishawaka just prior to the shooting. Video footage showed Jalil Willis and Nicholas Fairchild at the mall at the same time as the vehicle, and even showed that Willis was wearing clothing that was consistent with the eyewitness testimony or eyewitness descriptions from the crime scene. And it showed that suspect vehicle leave the University Park Mall parking lot and head towards Wagner Street. Detectives didn't stop there. They obtained a search warrant for Will's Instagram account. In that information from Instagram, they found voice notes sent from one Instagram user, Mr. Wills, to another. In that voice note, Wills admits to firing what he refers to as a 19 Gen 5 handgun, and that he hit a woman in the head. He also said that he was trying to get rid of that handgun because it was dirty and it was buried in a backyard. Detectives didn't stop there. They kept working. They got a search warrant for a resident that is associated with Nicholas Fairchild. In the backyard, they found a hole and a shovel. No handgun was found at that time, but the investigation continues. The South Bend Police Department Crime Laboratory did ballistic testing on casings located at the scene of the shooting. And they were able to identify that those casings were fired by a Glock 9mm Generation 5 handgun. Jalil Wills was charged with murder. Murder carries a sentencing range of 45 to 65 years. He was also charged with criminal recklessness with a deadly weapon, a level 6 felony, which has a sentencing range of 6 months to 2.5 years. And the firearms sentencing enhancement was also filed in his case. That can carry an additional 5 to 20 years incarceration. Nicholas Fairchild was charged with assisting a criminal as a level 5 felony. It's a level 5 felony because the crime he was assisting was murder. That carries a sentencing range of 1 to 6 years. Charges and probable cause affidavits were submitted to a judge. Probable cause was found. Both Wills and Fairchild are held in the St. Joseph County Jail. On other cases, they are now being held on these cases as well with no bond. Their arraignment hearing will be July 21st, which is this coming Monday at 1 p.m. Copies of the charging information and probable cause affidavits have been submitted to you. Please note that these individuals were arrested on preliminary suspicion and are presumed innocent until and unless they are proven guilty in a court of law. Christina's family was notified of these charges before this press conference happened. They are asking you to respect their privacy at this time, but they really wanted to convey their gratitude to the South Bend Police Department and the entire community for coming together for Christina. The St. Joseph Prosecutor's Office also wants to thank the YWCA. There's no link between the YWCA and this crime, but they're a community leader, and they did what community leaders do. They came together and they offered any cooperation that they could give the police department at the time of the investigation. We'd also like to thank the Casey Center for all of the compassion that they showed Christina's son during his interview there. I know that in this case, the officers, the detectives, everyone who's been involved in this investigation have taken that little boy into their hearts, and his trauma is something that it's generally moving to everyone in law enforcement. And that's why they wanted to be there for him and work with the community to get these charges filed for Christina. We also can't thank enough the South Bend Police Department with a deep appreciation for everything they've done. From uniform patrol to the detective bureau to the crime lab to the real-time crime center. We're so grateful to everyone who has worked so hard on this case, but particularly to the community members who've joined that network with the Real-Time Crime Center. Justice takes teamwork, and everybody in this community has to be a part of that team. The business owners, the residents who have become a part of that network are standing up in this community and saying no to violence and no to crime. They're making a very real difference in very real cases. And in Christina's case, you can see that. They made a difference. I encourage anyone in the community who has video surveillance capabilities, please contact the South Bend Police Department. Become a part of this team, because the folks who are on that team stood up. They stood up for you, they stood up for me, and they stood up for Christina. I'm going to open it up to questions.
Is there any relation between Wills and Fairchild? Like, are they related at all? Just friends at all? Do you know?
I'm going to defer to.
By the way, you gave him a promotion.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Lieutenant Hines.
Lieutenant Hines.
I'll take it, though. That's okay.
He'll take it.
No, from what we can tell, there's no relation between the suspects and the victim. She appeared to be purely a accidental victim, someone in crossfire.
No, I meant between the two in the car. Are they related?
Oh, I'm sorry.
At all?
Not to my
The two
knowledge, no.
suspects are related.
Jordan Tolbert, Agency 57. I just have a quick question about the nature of the gun being discharged. Was he shooting at somebody, or what was the situation leading to the shooting?
I'm going to defer again to Lieutenant Hines.
So some of the aspects of the case we can't disclose because it still goes to trial, and there's evidence items that we can't let the public know. However, it doesn't appear that they were shooting at the victim, if that answers your question.
There were a number of people who were in that area. That's part of the investigation that Lieutenant Hines is saying that he can't really talk too much about, but they have found no relationship between our victim and those two individuals that we have charged. Again, there were other people there. That may be a different story.
So would you say she was hit accidentally?
Somebody gets shot and killed, it's never an accident. She is not the intended target.
Right.
I would say, let's put it that way. Accident makes it sound like, oops, I dropped something. This is not an accident. This was discharged multiple times of a firearm.
Yes, ma'am.
I know when the first release that like Ashley sent out, it talked about that like a lot of people were there, and sometimes they talk about, you know, with these like parties that happen and shots being fired that no one really talks about it or like speaks out about it, but people being able to connect their cameras. Can you talk about that being a way also that they can help, like, you know, people are sometimes scared to speak up, but connecting their cameras and things like that can be a part of, you know, their voice helping solve these crimes?
It can, but absolutely, we still need people who saw something to say something. There are many aspects of how the community can come together to make sure that we are living safely, but people who know information, especially in a case like this, we're talking about a 37-year-old mother who's never going to get to see her little boy grow up. People who have information and know information, who don't want to talk, that's an impediment to us. That slows us down. Yes, I absolutely want people to join in that real-time crime center, but I don't want to make it seem like that can take the place of actual people coming together and saying for themselves, this is what I saw and it's not acceptable in my community.
I also want to make sure that folks aren't thinking, oh, she was associated with something that you have seen on the news where hundreds of people are coming there and there's beer drinking, and this was a family who was at a park with their child. There were other kids who were at that park with their children. This was not one of those, nighttime, 2 o'clock in the morning parties. If you were referencing those instances, those neighbors, if they have Ring cameras, you guys are able to connect to that? I'm going to now defer on how the real time.
Register the cameras. And it's an easy access through email to the person who's registered the cameras. So the real-time crime center cannot access Ring cameras in homes.
Lieutenant, you want to talk a little bit about that?
So the benefit of the real-time crime center is we have some businesses that integrate their cameras into where we do have access. But we also have private citizens who can register their cameras so that if we have an incident in a particular neighborhood, we know, hey, this person has a camera, this person has a camera. We can knock on their door and say, hey, we had an incident, would you be willing to share your camera footage with us on a voluntary basis? One other thing I wanted to touch on, reference, I get the fact that some people are reticent to speak with the police about what they saw, and I get that, but we do have avenues like our Crime Stoppers where you can call in an anonymous tip and say, give the information that you saw and have no further access to the case, but that can still give us investigative leads that we can take and utilize and to help solve that case. But you have to realize that when an incident happened, the police aren't there, the detectives aren't there, we come after the fact, but the people that were there, that saw something, they can be invaluable to us. So we would solicit those reports from them.
I just want to confirm that at the time Jalil Wills was identified as a suspect, he was already in jail for an incident that happened after the June 7th shooting?
I will defer to Ms. Gobieski.
Actually, that's not something that we can talk about. We can't talk about his prior criminal history here, though.
That is true.
But was he in, are you asking?
He was already in jail by the time you identified him as a suspect.
By the time we filed charges, which was today, he is currently in jail on unrelated charges.
Okay, so there was no police arrest in relation to this because he was already in jail?
That is correct.
Yes. His warrant is, I think, probably right now being read to him.
Okay. And then as far as Nicholas Fairchild, was he already in jail as well, or was there a police arrest for him for these charges?
Same thing.
He was already in jail?
Mhm.
Okay. And then, Lieutenant Hines, when was this investigation completed?
Well, it's not completed. It's always
Okay.
ongoing. But as Mr. Cotter said, we filed charges today.
Mhm.
But just because we filed charges doesn't mean that our investigation is completed. We're still continuing to follow leads and speak with people who maybe were reticent to talk to us before, but now that there are people in custody, they might be more forthcoming.
Okay.
So it continues.
Okay, and I know that you talked about the different avenues that you looked at for evidence, the Instagram, the different search warrants. Can you guys shed some light on why it took over a month to file charges?
How long have you, no, I'm not going to do that. Crimes take a long time to solve. They take even longer to get the evidence to be able to prove it. We've had, what, 4 discussions and meetings about, okay, what's the status of the investigation? There are leads, there are people who would pop up on possible suspects, and they would continue to investigate. We'd talk about that, and then, gee, they'd find out that person was not involved, and then go to the next one, and go to the next one. This is not like TV where a crime occurs and 55 minutes later, including commercials, the crime is solved, you go to trial, and then the person is sentenced. These things take time to do right, because the worst thing that would happen, in my opinion, would be for us to tell the family, hey, we found the person who killed your loved one. Oh, you know what, we're wrong. So when we bring it forward, we need to make sure we have our ducks in a row. They worked an incredible number of hours. When I say incredible number, I don't mean like 20 or 30. I mean probably hundreds of hours in tracking down everything that we could to be able to make sure that we do the best we can to get justice for her family.
The search warrants that I mentioned earlier, those are just some of the search warrants, and each one of them requires time to develop probable cause so that we can get that issued. None of those happened, the minute after the shooting occurred. That came in the days and weeks following.
Any other questions?
Sorry. In terms of that search warrant to look in the backyard and search for that gun, and not finding that gun, is that still a lead that you guys are following?
Yes.
Like continuing to search that backyard?
The backyard, the search warrant on the backyard has been executed. It was not found in the backyard. That doesn't mean that the investigation is done or they're going to discontinue looking for that weapon. But we have sufficient information right now to file charges without it.
'Cause if you remember this, the search in the backyard, there was a reference that he had buried it in a particular place. Officers went to that backyard. Lo and behold, there's a shovel and a hole as if something had been already dug up and moved. So did we get there too late? Probably. Any other questions? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.